Hi there, it's Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing, coming to you with another housing debrief. It is Friday, August 8th, and let's jump right into this week's housing debrief. And we want to compare where were we at in 2008 during the Great Financial Crisis to where are we at today, right now, so that everybody can kind of understand, okay, these are the differences, these are the similarities, and so let's get right into it. So, are we building ourselves up for another big downturn like the Great Financial Crisis? So, will we have that crash? And so, everybody remembers the Great Recession. It was long, and even in real estate, we could start seeing it as early as the fall of 2005, and there's a run up in inventory, and then we had demands that came cratering down, and it was like that for a number of years. There, it was the Wall Street financial markets. It hit everybody. Stock portfolios, stock market crashed. We had massive unemployment. We had a lot of people that lost their homes to short sale or foreclosures, or couldn't make their payments any longer and had to sell their house among all the diving values. There's pretty much nobody was unscathed. It either happened to you directly or it happened to a loved one or a neighbor. It happened to so many different people. And everybody now remembers what that burn was like. I remember going to Hawaii, having such a bad burn, a horrible burn where I jumped into the shower and the cold water felt hot. It felt like it was stinging. So I remember what that burn was like, and I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So when everybody has such a bad burn like that, like the burn of the Great Financial Crisis, we remember that burn. And now with every sort of a downturn, everybody's head doesn't even go back to the most recent downturns like COVID or the dot-com crash. They go back to the Great Recession. That is the specific one that everybody thinks about because of it was so damaging, and it was such a bad burn for so many different people. So what we're going to do is take a look at, okay, where are we at during the Great Financial Crisis and where are we at right now. And we're going to do that in terms of housing inventory. And housing inventory, I'm pointing to here, this is the GFC, and we were at the Great Financial Crisis, and that was 2007, 2008, 2006, 2007, 2008, where we were at 4 million homes, but we were at 3 million homes back at the fall of 2005. And now today, and this is courtesy of National Association of Realtors, we're at 1,540,000 homes on the market. That's like half of where we were when it was flashing yellow in the fall of 2005, and it's missing 2.5 million homes to be where we were during the Great Financial Crisis. We're talking a lot more homes, just just so many more homes compared to where we were at today. The difference is when you have that much homes on the market, has such a giant inventory that there's tremendous pressure on the housing market. And so that's the differences in supply. How about the differences in demand? And this is the United States Pending Home Sales Index from National Association of Realtors. It's actually not an accumulation of all pending sales the way that we actually talk about pending sales as demand. They're talking about a pending sales index, but yet still taking this pending sales index, you can actually see right here that today there's a little bit less than the demand than there was during the Great Financial Crisis. But the Great Financial Crisis was still way off even where we were prior to the pandemic. That yellow line up at the top, that goldish line, that is the average between 2017 and 2019. So 17, 18, and 19, when things were a lot more normal. They weren't like head over heels crazy like they were prior to the Great Recession, yet they still were very solid years. And the Great Financial Crisis was way off that. And today it demands a little bit less than where it was during the Great Financial Crisis. And let's talk about the differences in supply and demand, and that kind of gives you this speed of the market. So what are you looking for an absorption rate? What kind of, how much, where are we at right now as far as supply is concerned? And as far as supply is concerned, we right now today have a supply that is not yet at 150 days. Now, during the Great Financial Crisis, it was over 300 day is what the supply was. We have our own metrics that we do, but it's not for across the United States. It's for all the markets that we do, and it's called the expected market time. And the markets that we tracked, we got to over a 400-day expected market time during the Great Financial Crisis. So you can imagine that still, even where we're at right now, according to National Association of Realtors, it is way faster of a market than where we were during the Great Financial Crisis. So that is a big difference in this true speed of the market. And as far as the down payments are concerned, now during the Great Financial Crisis, it was in 2007, which was pretty much the beginning of the Great Financial Crisis. 2006 was a buildup of inventory, but the subprime meltdown actually occurred in March of 2007. It was 9 to 12% was the average down payment in 2007. And there was what led up to the Great Financial Crisis was a lot of low or no down payments, and that was extremely common. And first timers were putting down an average of 2 to 5%. Today, it's 13 to 14%. That was the average down payment for 2024. There are much tighter lending standards that require larger down payments. This came out of getting burned, banks getting burned during the Great Financial Crisis, and having much stricter lending standards. First timers today actually put down between 6 and 8% versus the 2 to 5% during the Great Financial Crisis. And as far as lending standards are concerned, but first let's get into our sponsor. And our sponsor this week is Mike Grambow from JMJ Financial. Welcome back, Mike, with the Thibodeau Morel Group. And you can reach Mike at 714-794-7668. And he has a number of different non-QM loans. They're for borrowers who do not meet the usual guidelines. And this includes real estate investors, real estate agents, self-employed borrowers, and they have 12-month bank statement programs. They have 1099 only programs, no income DSCR loans for investment properties. They have exciting alternative loan products, incomes from your P&L without further documentation of bank statements, tax returns, or pay stubs, and just a letter from the borrower's CPA verifying the P&L as well. So they can close as fast as 14 days, both purchase and refinance. So you know what? Have somebody come to work for you and work for your clients that just does an absolute superb job. Mike Grambow from JMJ Financial with the Thibodeau Morel Group. That's Mike Grambow, and you can reach him at 714-794-7668. That's 714-794-7668. And now back to the program with lending standards. So what is the difference in lending standards during the Great Financial Crisis versus today? And it just shows you where the lending standards are. And the source is actually MBA, and they kept track of this. So they knew that there was a problem back prior to the Great Recession because it elevated where it is so easy to get a loan. And the Great Financial Crisis, that housing bubble, you can see how high everything rose before it absolutely collapsed during the Great Recession. And where are we at today? There is no loose lending standards. It still is tight lending standards across the board. So you actually have to qualify and be able to prove that you can pay back your mortgage. Didn't have to do that as much back in the day. As a matter of fact, during the Great Financial Crisis, what led up to it were subprime loans, pick a payment loan plans, where you got to pick a really small payment, but it added to how much you owed on the home every single month. Teaser rate adjustable mortgages, fraudulent lending. You could fog a mirror in many cases and get a loan. You remember those. We actually called that fog a mirror loans, and there was plenty of that was going on. So versus today with the tight qualifications and very strict lending standards. And as far as credit scores are concerned, the New York Fed has been keeping track of credit scores for a very, very long time. And you could actually see what led up to and during the Great Recession. It wasn't until more recently that you see a lot more of that blue. And that blue are people with 760 plus credit scores. That's mortgage originations. the average mortgage origination that was leading up to the Great Financial Crisis was 681, and you could actually see that with that aqua color and the yellow color. Those are people that have less than a 620 FICO score, and those between a 620 and 659. You could see on the right hand side very, very little of it. What do you see the most of? That light blue, and that 760 plus credit score. So there was just a mix of okay credit to bad credit, and that is what made up all of the loans combined that led up to the Great Financial Crisis. So big difference, 681 versus 740. And as far as home equity is concerned, this is the amount of tappable equity. Tappable equity means you can actually tap your equity in your house if you own it, you own a home, and you still have 20% equity left over. So this is the amount above that 20%. How much can all the households combined tap of their equity? It was $5 trillion back prior to the Great Financial Crisis. You can see how it dwindles down as you get towards 2008, but there was a lot of tappable equity. Today, there's $11 trillion of tappable equity. And over 2/3 of all Americans have paid off their mortgage or have at least 50% equity. And you can see that the number that own their homes free and clear is just about 40% at 39.3. And those that have greater than 50% equity is 29.3%. That's the blue. So those that have less than 50% equity, that's only 31.4% of the entire housing stock. This shows you the overall health of the current housing stock. And as far as cash out refinances are concerned, which everybody used their homes as piggy banks leading up to the Great Financial Crisis, and you could see the big difference. This was taken out in 2000, if you could see, 2000 started the big problem in 2004, 2005, 2006, all the way up to 2008, and it got all the way up to $485 billion in tapping out of equity, and versus in 2024, in the beginning of 2025, this first quarter of 2025, $50 billion. That's it. $50 billion is where it's at right now as far as tappable equity coming out. So this is people cashing out and taking extra dollars out. So they not only refinance and tap their equity for repaying their amount, they actually have a loan amount that is higher than what they had before. So they're pulling out extra money to pay for whatever it is. If you remember back to the Great Financial Crisis, people were buying RVs, they were taking giant trips, they were doing lots of fun different things, and they were basically using their homes as ATM machines. You could see like crazy, $458 billion of money pulled out of their home just to use however they want to versus $50 billion now. That is way less today. And as far as the number of delinquent loans are concerned, you can see what led up to the GFC, and during the GFC that the delinquency rate got really, really high. And it got up all the way up to 9% during 2008, and then made its way all the way up towards 11% later on in 2009, versus where we're at right now, 3.2%. And that 4.13% that you can see right next to now, that's actually the 5-year average between 2000 and 2005, and it's well below that 5-year average. So where it's at today is at decades lows, and you've heard recently that it has been rising a little bit. It's been rising barely anything, but so there are more delinquencies that are in the pipeline compared to where we were when they shut off the ability to foreclose altogether. But today it doesn't look that bad, does it? So that's where the national delinquency rate is. As far as number of foreclosures, this is the number of foreclosures. This is Adam. They've been researching foreclosures for a very long time, and you can see in 2025, for the first 6 months of the year, it's 187,000 foreclosures versus what was it last year at 177,000. But this is still in 2025, for the first 6 months, is off of where it was in 2023. I mean, in 2020, almost the same as 2023 at 185,000. So very, very similar to where we were just a couple of years ago, higher than where we were last year, but even well off of where we were prior to the pandemic at 296,000 in 2019. But we're making our way back up towards pre-pandemic levels, but nobody was saying that we had a problem back in 2019. And that's what they're saying again today. And as far as the number of underwater homes are concerned, we are at 1% across the United States. And in 2008, it was at 10% and grew to 23% in 2009. So there were a lot of homes that were underwater, and those were completely underwater where they have no equity at all. So there's also limited equity and different things like that if you're looking at the gray bars as well. So how about the number of bankruptcies? If you could see, this is also taken from the New York Fed and from the their consumer credit profile as well as Equifax. And during the Great Financial Crisis, what was leading up to the Great Financial Crisis was actually 4 times the level of where we are at today right now as far as foreclosures were concerned. And a lot of that was this wave that led up to the Great Financial Crisis. And you can actually see where it got really, really high in 2005 and then dropped off like crazy and then started to increase again. The reason it dropped off is because they made it harder to have bankruptcies, and there was some changing in the laws. So that's where it came down, but then it continued to increase prior to the Great Financial Crisis and during the Great Financial Crisis. Versus now, it's like I said, it's 25% of the number of bankruptcies. And so 2008, and comparing 2008 to 2025, yes, prices are coming down a little bit. It's more of a supply issue than a major catastrophic problem. No red alert problem that we're seeing in any of the data or any of the numbers. We do see that there are more homes on the market this year than there were last year. Demand isn't changing, so that's just changing the imbalance between supply and demand to the point where values were going up last year, and now we've added more inventory. Now values are starting to come down slowly. That's kind of where things are currently at. Changes in interest rates, which we might see, where if interest rates come down towards that 6% level, will change things dramatically, and we'll actually see values start to go up again. So it just depends upon what happens with interest rates and what happens with inventory and demand. And we'll be watching that inventory and demand thing very, very carefully going forward. Right now, the imbalance is slightly favoring buyers in many, many markets across the United States. Matter of fact, I just saw something on ICE, formerly Black Knight, and it's like 50% of all markets are now starting to lean just very slightly into negative territory, and it has to do with the imbalance of supply versus where current demand is. Know that I'll be continuing to bring the numbers. I invite you to like this this video, subscribe to our channel for more of this kind of content, and to get the algorithms going for YouTube. And you can go to reportsonhousing.com for more information and to subscribe to our latest report. And our latest report is called Will Prices Plunge? And that's basically just talking about what will it take for prices to plunge and where are we at right now. And all markets will get it as of this coming up week. Along the coast, they got it this past Monday. And if you would like a free month, utilize the coupon code 2008. That's 2008 for a free month. So thank you for joining us for another housing debrief. I'm Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing. Hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll be bringing this to you again next week. So have a fantastic week until then.